Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Matt Bernier. Grade 1 action at Churchill Downs on Friday night. It is the prestigious Clark Handicap. Let's take a look at this field. $500,000 is the purse. They're going 1 1/8 miles. We are expecting a field of 8. Matt, last year you liked Seeking the Soul in the Clark Handicap. He scored at almost 8-1. He's 8-5 on the morning line, but he's still the horse to beat.
Yeah, let's be honest, 8-5 might be a bit of a pipe dream. I think he's going to be closer to even money when it's all said and done. You know, this is really kind of one of those underrated horses, I think. And it took him a little while to figure things out, but once he finally put it all together, he's really done nothing wrong going all the way back to that race at Keeneland in October last year. Came back, won the Clark. I thought he ran actually pretty well in the Pegasus, and unfortunately that preceded an injury. The race at Indiana was nothing more than a sort of means to an end. The Woodward was disappointing, I think it's fair to say. But the two most recent races, thought he ran just fine in each of those. And if he runs the dirt mile, simply put, I think that's good enough to win it here.
Ran really well in the dirt mile. City of Light just is probably better than Seeking the Soul at a 1-turn mile. And Brian Hernandez Jr. was moving Seeking the Soul from the back of the pack. Got caught up in just a little bit of a box. I don't think it really made the difference, but I really liked the way this horse was digging in the stretch. He was trying hard all the way to the wire, easily second best, resulted in a career best Beyer speed figure. This is a horse that has 5 triple-digit Beyer speed figures out of his last 7 races, and it looks like he should get a fair to fast pace in the Clark. We take a look at the Timeform U.S. pace projector for this race. Luch Stables has 2 in here. The number 7 Storm Advisory has some sprint speed. He's stretching all the way out off of a win in an allowance race at Thistledown. There are some distance concerns, obviously, for a horse like Storm Advisory, as well as class concerns, but maybe he makes sort of the 2 classy speeds in Leofric and Prime Attraction work a little bit.
You know, the way that I kind of laid it out, when you see Storm Advisory, to me, he's nothing more than a rabbit for the other Luch horse in here. I kind of feel like there's a real scenario where they let him go and you have the exact pace situation from the Fayette, where you have Prime Attraction just sit off of him now, and then you have Leo Frick sit off him. And at that point, everyone just kind of is content with their positions. And if that's the way it goes, I think the folks coming out of the Fayette are going to be very, very content.
Let's talk about the Fayette. Leo Frick, I don't think deserves short shrift at all. He's won 7 of 13, 11 of 13 on the board, and he finished ahead of Seeking the Soul in the Woodward. And both of those horses were up close to a very fast pace. Leo Frick was actually carving out the fractions in the Woodward, and he was dead game to finish 3rd behind 2 one-run closers, Yoshida and Gunnavera. And then he was game to win the Fayette. There were some questions about the 1 1/8 in the wet track, and he answered them. It was a stretch-long duel with Prime Attraction. He proved best. Leofric, the question for him is what kind of trip is he going to work out? He's capable of coming from way out of it. He's capable of making the lead. I think Florent Giroux takes a look at the rabbit on the outside and plays off of him.
I think they're going to let him go. And again, down on the inside with Prime Attraction, I think they're going to be a little bit more aggressive to kind of get out and not get boxed in. And if that's the case, I think they're going to be very content working out a bit of a stalking trip. The one thing I would say, he won that race most recently in the Fayette. I'm still not convinced that 9 furlongs is really ideal for him. And it's one thing to do it in a situation like he did at Keeneland, where all things considered, it was a perfect trip. He's handled the wet track in the past. Then he's sitting off of Prime Attraction, who we'll talk about in a minute. It's a different story, I think, with a more talented group and that long, long stretch run at Churchill Downs. I'm just not totally sold that 1 1/8 there works for him.
In his 5 races leading up to the Fayette, his 5 most recent dirt races leading up to the Fayette, Prime Attraction faced Accelerate. He was very happy walking into the paddock at Keeneland and not seeing Accelerate, and he ran really well against Leofric. But he was up to his old tricks again, Matt. He had the lead, and then right in the mid-stretch, he changed over to his left lead, and I wonder if that cost him the race.
I got to be honest with you. When you go back and watch the tape, for anyone that hasn't, watch Kent DeSormo's ride on him. I think it finally, whether it was Kent's job all alone or if it was him and Jim Cassidy coming together, I wonder if it's just a situation where this horse resents the whip, because Kent showed him the whip multiple times. And I think he only hit him once or twice. When he did hit him, he popped over to his left lead and then swapped back again. I wonder if finally maybe that's what it was, where I know you and I, we've always said that he's just kind of a dopey horse. Maybe it's not that. Maybe he just resents being hit with the stick, and Kent rode him, I thought, perfectly in there. The problem is he just couldn't quite get the job done. I think he's an honest horse, and I think Kent fits him about as well as anyone as far as a rider is concerned. If he couldn't get it done in the Fayette, I'm not really convinced he's going to be able to get it done here.
Listen, Bravazzo is not a superstar, but how can you not love of a throwback. This is going to be his 11th start of 2018. He competed in all 3 Triple Crown races. He ran 3rd in the Travers. He ran 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. He's a legitimately nice horse for Mr. Lucas. One thing I've noticed about him, and I wonder if you've noticed the same thing, Bravazzo, I think, has trouble on the turns. In the Preakness, he kind of was outpaced on the turn. It looked like he was going nowhere, and then he's flying in the stretch to get beat a half length by Triple Crown winner Justify. In the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, looked like he's going nowhere on the turn. Once they straightened out into the stretch, he came with a good, even, solid run to finish 3rd. Not sure what his best distance is. I think a 1 1/8 is okay for him, and if the pace does get kind of hot, maybe he sits a mid-pack trip.
Yeah, when I did the recap for the Dirt Mile, I said I feel like, and even going into the Dirt Mile, you look and see at some of his races, I don't know what it is, but the turns are not kind to him because he is all out pushed along and he's dropping anchor. He's going the wrong way. And then all of a sudden when he hits the straight, he comes on again and he rallies nicely. This is a really nice horse. I like him. I think he's been I think he's earned some respect from people, and I think people look at him the way that we've described him. He's no superstar, but he's honest. He shows up. He can run at a mile. He can run at a 1 1/4. You name it. He can run well. I think he's got an interesting chance in here. I don't know if he's going to be able to – I don't know if he's good enough to win. Let's just call a spade. But I think you're going to get an honest effort out of him. The only real clunker that he's ever thrown in outside of the Pennsylvania Derby was the Belmont. I mean, he's an honest horse who shows up and runs his race. I kind of like him here, especially with that long stretch. I picked him 2nd.
Hence is a multiple graded stakes winner. He has been placed masterfully by trainer Steve Asmussen. This is a horse that's never byred greater than 97, and he's earned over $800,000 in his career. No match for Leofric in Prime Attraction in the Fayette, but if you believe that race was just simply dominated up front, he didn't have much of a chance. I've just never thought of Hence as a grade 1 type.
No, and let's just also be fair. You take a look at his overall body of work. It's not as though he's ever run overly fast. Like you say, a career best number of 97. Simply put, I don't think that's good enough to win. I think there's a chance where you can get a piece underneath if you're playing a try or a super, but I don't like him on top.
Millionaire Hawakam's best race this year came way back in February at Oaklawn when he rode a gold rail to win the Grade 3 Razorback over Leofric, who might have been best running on the deepest part of the track. Since then, other than a second behind Backyard Heaven in the Ali Sheba and a decent 4th in the Stephen Foster, he just hasn't fired. He is a 1-run closer that needs a barbecue.
Yeah, I mean, based on the recent form, it's difficult for me to really recommend him. I do wonder, he's 8 years old. You always have to question at this point, is he starting to lose a little bit? But let's just say hopefully he's not at this point where he's starting to lose a little bit on the fastball. If not in this spot, keep in mind, he has always had a bit of an affinity for Oaklawn Park. If they get him back there over the winter, I think he's going to be interesting in those races. 2019
Razorback, pencil him in the Hawakam. Sight for Sore Eyes, the other Luch runner, claimed for 62.5, ran better than expected, let's be honest. In the Grade 1 Vosburg, finishing 4th behind a geared-down Imperial Hint. He was supposed to win last time out in his final prep. He did so nicely. Listen, this is a horse that's been honest throughout his entire career, but it's a gigantic ask.
It certainly is, but he'll at least have the benefit of that uncoupled stablemate who's going to go out there and set a legitimate pace. I think the Connections would be very, very happy if they could hit the board. I think it's still a little bit of a long shot, but look, we're not dealing with a vintage Grade 1 group here. It's not out of the realm that he runs 3rd or 4th.
Top pick time for the Grade 1 Clark Handicap. We both think Seeking the Soul goes back-to-back in the Grade 1 Clark. Gimme numbers.
3, 6, 5, 1. To me, I'm no disrespect to the Fayette or the horses coming out of it. I just look at it and say the horses coming out of the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, they're the ones I want. To me, it's a cold 3-6 punch.
I agree with you. 3, 6, 5, 1 for me in the Grade 1 Clark. One of 2 graded stakes races at Churchill on Friday. The Clark has an approximate post time of 5:56 Eastern. Good luck.